Guys, and welcome to today's video where I thought I'd go through all the things I have sort of around the house that I can use with my geckos, or probably reptiles in general, in case of an emergency. So a bit of a first aid kit for reptiles, and this was actually inspired by a patron of this channel, Lisa, who's putting together her own first aid kit and asked me what I use. And as I started to gather the list, I thought maybe I should make a video on this. Quick disclaimer though, if you are worried about your reptile's health, take them to a vet, okay? We can only do so much at home, but if they need proper tests or they need prescribed medicine, see a vet. So the first item is kind of for yourself. It is hand sanitizer. Now I'm sure most of you have this at the moment. This isn't just for you though, because this can actually really help spread any diseases, parasites amongst your reptiles, especially if you have a new reptile and you need to quarantine them. You want to be washing your hands between handling geckos, and not everyone either can get to or can be bothered to get to a sink and with some soap, so it's handy to have some of this in your reptile room or just near your reptiles. So if you're going from gecko to gecko, you can quickly wash your hands. Not only does that help keep you healthy, but it can, as I said, also prevent spreading things to other reptiles in your room. The next one is sort of similar. It is a reptile safe disinfectant. If you saw my mite infestation video, you know I sprayed my whole room with this stuff. But once again, this is good for preventing spreading things to other reptiles or to yourself. So it's always good practice to keep the area where your reptiles are clean. Once again, like the mite thing, those mites were grain mites, I think, so they wouldn't have harmed my geckos. But if there's anything that could harm your gecko, or say you have a reptile that's become sick and all of a sudden you really need to deep clean that reptile room and all your reptile tanks, just always have reptile disinfectant on hand. Obviously this stuff you don't spray on your geckos, but it's just a standard thing to have if you're owning reptiles. Next up is saline. So if you've ever seen stuff that you use contact lenses for, this sort of stuff, this can work really well for multiple reasons. One that I use it for the most is Minnie's eye. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know Minnie was born with a dodgy eye. It's kind of sunken in, it's kind of small, it dries out all the time so it gets stuck. So there's nothing actually in it, no infection or anything. We've had it checked out by the vet, but just I think there's an eyelid that, like a third eyelid that comes along and lubricates the eye, and her one either doesn't exist or is blocked, I don't know, but the eye gets stuck. So it needs to be rehydrated. And I do this with saline, I do it with a cotton bud, which we'll get to in a moment. This helps her so much because, of course, you can use water, but if you go and get some tap water and drop it in your eye, and then you drop a bit of saline in your eye, you'll notice a difference. Saline soothes the eye. It just does not feel anywhere near as harsh as water. So for me, having a gecko with a dodgy eye, I would recommend this so much. And because I wear contact lenses, I have a lot of this about. The ones that you want to avoid is sort of saline with medicine in. So you know you get those allergy eye drops, stuff like that you don't want. You just want it to have saline in it, okay? And this works so well with geckos of bad eyes, or if you have a reptile that has an opened wound that's going to heal, that doesn't need to see a vet. Maybe it's just got a little cut and you want to make sure it kept clean. One day Diego dropped his nail during shedding and it bled, so I just rinsed this through. That will do. If your gecko drops its tail and you're worried about substrate getting in it, you can once again rinse it through with saline. It's just a lot more soothing than water. Next up, as I just mentioned, cotton buds. So these also are known as Q-tips. Some people will use it for removing makeup. Some people will use it in their ears, even though every doctor and nurse tells you not to. But they're usually around the house. These can be really handy, as I said, with like Minnie and dabbing that saline on. If you have stuck shed in the eye or on the toes, you can certainly use this to rinse that skin. You can also give the gecko a bath. Once again, I'll link that because it's not like a full-blown bath, like don't get that wrong, but you can just do that. But if it's little areas, little toes, and you want to get them wet, this can work well. If you can't get your hands on these, and you can always use cotton pads, but these come in quite handy. Once again, if you have them around the house, you don't have to go out and buy them, you don't use them that often, but they can help. Next up we have tweezers. Now, this is really important. Don't get sharp tweezers. Get ones that if you run your finger across them, they don't hurt, they're blunt. And do not use these on your gecko's eyes or anywhere very delicate. With the cotton bud, actually what I forgot to say, you can also use these on femoral paws. So when you're dealing with a male gecko and you need to rinse that area, you can do that with them. Don't pull them out with tweezers. I don't believe that's what you're meant to do. I think that can do more damage. But with these tweezers, what you can do is say, you know, you're struggling to get hold of a bit of skin, maybe on their toes or somewhere else, you can use tweezers. You've got to be careful. You want to use blunt ones. Personally, for me, I like to use my nails because I feel like I have more control. I can feel how much pressure I'm putting on and, you know, getting hold of that skin. But not everyone has fingernails to get hold of, so tweezers can work then. But as I said, do not use these around the eye or anywhere delicate because they could do damage. Then we have Sudocrem. Now, if you're in America, I believe the equivalent to this is Neosporin. I think that's what it's called. So this is sort of marketed as a nappy rash cream. So it's normally in the baby aisle, but it's good for eczema, surface wounds. It's an antiseptic healing cream. And I have checked with the vet because we've used this with my guinea pig before. If they got a little sore foot, you can put this on. If you have your geckos, you can use that. They can lick it, because if you've seen the video where Minnie took too many layers of skin off of her nose, I was putting this on that really sore looking area, and that was right on her nose where she'd lick, and it was absolutely fine. Now what I like about this is if you put some on, and you can lay it on quite thick, what will happen is it will dry, and it's almost like a plaster or band-aid. That comes out very unnaturally with my accent, a band-aid. So basically what happens is it adds this layer of protection. It prevents it getting infected, and it soothes it. So this was really good for Minnie's nose. I haven't really used it that often with my geckos, but it's just something you have around the house. If your gecko for some reason gets burnt, or as I said, takes too many layers of skin off, or I don't know why you'd have a gecko with another gecko, but there was a fight and one's got bitten, you could put this on it. It's just a handy thing to have, and as I said, it should last. Like once this dries down, it will stay on there for quite a while. My hands are really shiny now because I've just rubbed that in, but the last item I have here today is a hand warmer. You can get specific reptile ones that last longer, ones that the reptiles are shipped in if they were going to be shipped. The reason these are handy to have is if you have a power outage, they can be handy, but also if you need to pop to the vets and it's cold outside, you can warm one of these up. I would recommend wrapping them in paper towel just so the reptile can't go directly on them, because they can get really hot at first. But these are just handy to have. Now I will say, I have done a video on what to do in a power outage, so if that's something that happens frequently for you, then I'd get prepared, definitely get things like this or a generator. I'm quite lucky that we rarely have power outages, and when we do, they're usually resolved quite quickly. But I still have these handy because you never know. So I hope this video has helped. Most of these items are very easy to find. You can literally go down like the medical aisle, the health and beauty aisle of your supermarket and find tweezers, cotton buds, Sudocrem, saline and hand gel. You might even find these hand warmers, and the only thing you'd have to get is probably the reptile disinfectant from a reptile shop. So really not difficult. You probably have some of this stuff laying around your house, and they can come in really handy with reptiles. As I said at the beginning though, if you are really concerned about your reptile health, please take them to a vet. But thank you to Lisa for this idea. Thank you to you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. But thank you and goodbye.